We're all set.
Okay, thanks very much. It's just a little past 9, so we'll call the Criminal Justice and Public Safety meetings to order. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the prior committee meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Supervisor Bramer, second by Supervisor Driscoll. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, the first office this morning is a public defender agenda. There's just a couple of items. Is there anybody there from the public defender's office?
Yes,
Oh,
how are
hi.
you? Good morning.
Good morning,
Hi.
Marcy.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me appear today. I have 2 easy things for you. The first one is I'm requesting to amend the county budget to put funds in from Distribution 8 from ILS. The reason we have to put them in the budget is so that we can spend them. We already have the agreement in terms of what we're using the money for, but we need to put it into the budget so we can spend it. So that's the whole purpose of agenda item number 1.
All right. Any questions for Marcy on that?
I'll
We have a
move it to
motion.
get it on the floor.
Okay, motion by Supervisor Seaver, second. Second Supervisor Driscoll, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Marcy, the second one is a budget item as well?
Yes, it is. I assume you're going to vote on both of them at the same time. Okay. So the second one is something we've been trying to do for a long time, and we appreciate working with the treasurer's office, the county administrator, and the auditor's office and ILS to get this done. We have requested separate GL, general ledger codes, in order to have our ILS funding put into the general ledger, so it's easier for the treasurer's office, the auditor's office, our office, and ILS to determine what funds are going into what categories so that they can be paid out easier. So it's for convenience for our office, the treasurer's office, and the auditor's office. So the purpose of number 2 is to create these GL codes so that we can use them and distribute our funds to make it easier for accountability.
Thank you, Marcy. Any question on this? Look for a motion to move it to the floor.
I'll move it for discussion.
Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Seaver?
Sure.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You have one discussion item, Marcy?
Yes, my last discussion item is space in the basement. A while ago, we had requested to use office space in the basement for storage and because there's no more office space on our floor that we could use, so that we could use the basement space for storage and to put a support staff member down there for our scanning and our copying for the discovery. It's a good location and it's a secure location for us. So I am pleased to announce that Kevin Hagos and Scott Rogers were able to use the staff, and they cleared out the space for us. So we're going to be getting file cabinets, and as part of Distribution 8 that I assume you're going to approve today, to use those funds. Part of that money goes for the file cabinets, for the servers, and for the big copy machine, copy printer scanner that we use for all those things. So that's why I wanted to bring up, to let you know what was going on that, because I always try to keep you updated on what's going on in the department and how we work with other departments.
Thank you, Marcy. And you still have staff outside of the municipal center, correct?
We still have 4 people in the Glens Falls office at 333 Glen, and that seems to be working well. It allows those attorneys and support staff to meet with clients and to be closer to Glens Falls City Court, which obviously you may not be aware of, but it's open 5 days a week. So we have to send someone there on a regular basis if there's an arraignment. The cap part is for when a court is not in session, the centralized arraignment part, but since Glens Falls City Court is open from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., we have to send someone all the time. So it's nice to have an office down there so that someone can run over for an arraignment.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, discussion for Marcy on these issues? Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to get an update from you and from Marcy on the PD hiring process.
It's my understanding the position has been posted. It's posted, I believe, until the first week in March approximately. I know that through the grapevine, I have not seen any applications, but I know that there are at least 2 people that I have spoken to who will be applying. And I'm hoping that when it's time to do the interviews, allow me to participate. And again, that's up to the board and the process. And as I indicated, I wanted to leave somewhere between April and June, and I'd like to leave the end of May, which will take us right to my time frame, as pushed back as far as I could for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, discussion from Marcy?
Could I just
Supervisor Seaver?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is more of a question for you, Mr. Chairman. What is the role, if any, of this committee in the personnel search for the replacement
Well,
of
so
Ms.
far,
Flores?
okay, so far there's just been a widely distributed announcement. I had a very brief discussion with Administrator Moore about it. And when we get the applications in, my recommendation would be to have some members of this committee, if not everyone, at least review the applications, and then we can make a decision on an interview panel. I'm not sure we need 7 people plus Marcy and the administrator for an interview. That could be a little overwhelming, obviously. But I think it'll certainly be some combination. At least that'll be my recommendation to the administrator. Anybody have any other thoughts on it?
If I may just follow up.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you. I would just respectfully request that there be involvement with committee members in designing that process moving forward. It is a full appointment of the board. It's an incredibly important appointment, and those positions are few and far between that report to the entire board of the 20 of us. So I know in the past there's been a very detailed process with involvement from all members of the board moving forward with these types of appointment positions. And we've been so blessed to have Marcy here for as long as we have, and it will be big shoes to fill. So I'm looking forward to not rushing that process, but making sure that there is representation from all of our municipalities moving forward on that search.
Understood and agreed. Any other comments, questions for Marcy?
I just wanted to make sure were both of my resolutions approved?
Yes.
They were. Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a great day.
Thank you. Everyone be safe.
Okay, is
Bye,
anybody,
Marcy.
any representative from probation there?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Hi, I'm Amy Secor. I'm a supervisor at Warren County Probation, and I'm here on behalf of Director Yusi. This morning we have 2 requests, and I would like to give you a little bit background on what we have been doing. In 2021, we were one of 3 counties in New York State to receive a YPR Connects grant, and that's through Cornell University and the New York State Developmental Disabilities Planning Council. The mission of the grant is to improve outcomes for at-risk youth and justice-involved youth, as well as young adults in the criminal justice system with disabilities. Through the grant, we have accomplished and created a community of practice team that includes people with lived experience, including parents and youth, as well as county agencies and other private agencies within Warren County. It's been a real pleasure to work with these agencies and the community members on addressing what our needs are. And after almost a year of collaborative efforts, we have accomplished quite a few goals that we had. Why I'm here today is that we are looking to develop an employment and training mentoring program. So we have been working with Jill Metcalf from Employment and Training and Bill Moon and Megan Farrell from Big Brothers and Big Sisters to develop this program. What it will consist is we anticipate about 3 to 5 identified at-risk youth, ages 14 to 18, participating in an 8-week training and mentoring process. We plan to contract with Big Brothers and Big Sisters for the purpose of vetting and fingerprinting and training the mentors who are employees of local community businesses to provide mentoring opportunities for these youth. We also plan to contract with employment training to provide trainings to youth regarding skills such as completing the application, the appropriate work attire, the appropriate work behaviors, work expectations, and protocols. These youth would be matched up with trained and vetted mentors at local businesses to receive on-the-job training with the support of both Big Brothers and Big Sisters and Jill Metcalf from Employment and Training. We anticipate to do 2 sessions, one in the spring and one in the fall of this year. So with that, we have 2 requests to make. And the first request is to enter into an agreement with Big Brothers and Big Sisters of the Southern Adirondacks in the amount of $8,160 for the term of April 1st, 2022 to March 31st of 2023 regarding the YAR Connects grant. And obviously what's written down is the rationale is that Big Brothers Big Sisters will work in conjunction with Warren County Employment Training Administration to provide the employment and training mentoring services for at-risk youth.
Thank you. Is there a motion to move this first request forward? Supervisor Driscoll, second by Supervisor McDevitt. Questions, comments on this one? You have a question, Supervisor Driscoll?
Just a comment. Thank you, Chairman. Amy, congratulations. I just want to say that I've heard also from employment and training as well as Brothers Big Sisters. This is a model example of government working with the not-for-profit sector to really put together a great program. So continued success with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Supervisor Sieber?
Thank you. Amy, it's not very often that we get to meet. I mean, it's only once a month and it's great to see you. And I wanted to take the opportunity publicly. I know sometimes we go through business so quickly and the efforts that you make on behalf of the probation department, but the long reaching impacts and the community, the domino effect in the community is just so positive. So it's programs like this, and you're working on so many others, I know, but I really see that impact in our community and particularly in Queensbury. So I wanted to applaud your efforts, and I'm always going to stand behind these programs that you want to bring forward and continue to make that impact, particularly in the area of restorative justice, which I'm so impressed by all the hard work. So I only wanted to comment and applaud your efforts and the leadership of Director Yusi.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions?
Chairman Larry Ellman, just a quick note. If you could provide that detail to my office and any other detail you have, because we do want to include it in the proposed agreements that we're going to prepare.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, move this forward.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Good. There's a second request.
Yes, we have a second request to enter into an agreement with Warren County Employment and Training Administration in the amount of $6,840 for the term of April 1st, 2022 to the term of March 31st, 2023 regarding the YAR Connects grant, with the rationale to work in conjunction with Big Brothers and Big Sisters to provide the employment and mentoring services for at-risk youth.
Thank you. Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor Sieber, second. Supervisor Bramer. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much for appearing today. We appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. I had a call this week from the district attorney, although we don't have an agenda item from him, and he's out of town on a family emergency that I had to go to, but they had an opportunity to apply for a domestic violence grant. And he received this notice literally within 24 hours when he called me, and it had to be submitted by the next day, which was midweek. We discussed it for quite some time. The good news about it, there is no match involved. from county funds. So I took the liberty to approve him applying for this, and no guarantee, obviously, that he would get it. There was no time to get it on the agenda. We would have passed the date for the application period. So I want to make the committee aware of it, that I did give him the go-ahead to submit the application and for a domestic violence program. Hopefully we'll receive it. But hopefully you support that action. Obviously, if there was time, that would have had you all involved. But I really don't see any issues with it all, especially because there's no match of county funds. Supervisor Siebel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just as a point of clarification with that, is there any way that in the future, once you do give that approval, as the chairman for an out-of-committee request to apply for a grant, is there a way to just send us communication as a group with a copy of it? I know sometimes legal likes to look at that, and I'm hopeful that the county attorney's office reviewed it before the grant application went in. But even though there isn't a dollar match, I'm sure there is some type of match. And I know volunteer hours have been slim, perhaps not in the DA's office, but hopefully, may I just ask if legal reviewed it to approve it? I know our policies are before you apply for a grant, you have to get approval from your committee, and that's not always possible. Certainly, we don't want to miss a good opportunity for funding with the incidence of domestic violence being on the rise, particularly given COVID. So I'm supportive of this type of application, but would appreciate just having a copy of it, especially if it's something that would normally require committee approval.
Sure, I understand and agree with you. Supervisor Bramer, do you have your issue?
No issue with the underlying grant application, of course, Chairman, thank you. I do think, though, that our normal procedure is to have to send stuff like this to the full board. So if necessary, maybe legal can weigh in. I will make a motion to approve the retroactivity of the grant application.
All right, thank you.
And
Go ahead.
Larry Ellman for county attorneys.
Larry.
We'll make sure that we obtain a copy, review it before it's presented to the board. And if there is any issues that we observe, we'll advise by email the committee members before that occurs.
Thank you, Larry. I appreciate it. There was nothing else from criminal justice that I'm aware of. Supervisor Siebel?
We need a resolution to ratify your actions.
Okay. I'll ask for a motion to do that. To move
Well,
the,
Chairman, that was my motion.
okay, thank you. Moved by Supervisor Bramer, second. Supervisor McDevitt, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm going to abstain from that vote. I haven't seen the document.
Okay, understood. No, seeing no other comments, questions, motion is approved. Thank you. Anything else from criminal justice? I don't believe so. Okay, we'll move on to public safety. Is anyone there from emergency services?
Yes, hi, good morning.
Good morning. Emery, you've got a couple of items. Go ahead with request number one.
Yes, sure. So request number one is a resolution request apply for and accept the FY 2020 Building Resilient Infrastructure Communities Grant. The rationale for this grant is Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District applied and was awarded the grant, and Warren County will be named as a subrecipient. Grant funding will be used to update the Warren County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. And this is a 75% reimbursable grant, up to $90,000 with $30,000 of local match. The performance, period of performance for this is December 18th, 2021 through December 17th, 2024.
Thank you, Emery. Is there a motion to move this forward? Supervisor McDevitt, second by Supervisor Sieber. Any questions, comments on this? Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you. Anne Marie, thank you for bringing this through committee. I think it's so important that these grants are looked at in the way that we just discussed when there isn't that time sensitive need. And you've been so great over the last year in being proactive and bringing them well ahead of time and also being very specific about those matches. So thank you. And again, thank you for your continued efforts. I know you've been working incredibly hard.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The second request, Anne Marie, resolution request to establish a capital project for hazard mitigation grant program.
Yep. So with this, we would request that the total amount of the project would be $120,000 with the following funding sources identified. The H413 9550 438 hazard mitigation, $90,000. And the other one would be in-kind contributions for $30,000.
Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor Bramer. Second.
I'll second for discussion.
All right, Supervisor Seaver, go ahead. Your question, discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Anne Marie, when you say 30,000 in in-kind, can you break down what that in-kind will be?
Yeah, so that $30,000 will mostly consist of salaries coming from civil defense. And so it could be supplies as well that might be needed for going forward with this type of update to the mitigation plan.
May I follow, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Anne Marie, is it a combination of in-kind and third party? It was my understanding that there is a difference between those salaries. Is that identified on the documents?
I can double check and make sure.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor of moving this forward?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Third request is a resolution request to approve contingency management consulting group to use a subcontractor to complete the Warren County multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Anne Marie?
Okay, so the rationale for this is there was a bid awarded to Contingency Management Consulting Group to provide assistance in emergency planning, training, and exercise. With this, CNCG has requested a subcontract with Tetra Tech to complete the updates to our multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. Our current plan is set to expire July of 2022.
Thank you. Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Driscoll. Any additional comments, questions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anne Marie, anything else? Any discussion items?
No, but just maybe just give everybody a quick update. Our department was rather busy within the last week or so. We've had very active ice jam activity up north on the river. We've gone up multiple times just to get updates on it and surveil it. We were also busy last week with a Frontier service outage up north that took out most of our county. And we've been busy with COVID test kits, trying to move a lot of them out. We've got a good portion of them already out in the community. So working hard to get the rest of them out, and especially with your support. And that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Okay, thank you.
Supervisor, hang on one second, Anne Marie. Supervisor Seaver?
Thank you. I just wanted to take the opportunity again while we're, during these meetings when we communicate with the public, to be able to one, recognize those efforts of the Office of Emergency Services, but also to let entities know that to the extent that they still need those COVID test kits, Anne Marie has worked very hard to continue to secure and stock those kits. So it's not just about where those drop points are. It's about any need in our community to the extent the county has them available, that they will make them available along with any, remaining masks or sanitizers or whatever we can do to help those entities in our community that still needs them. I know they're pretty well saturated at this point, but those expiration dates, they come up quick. And so I would imagine that there may be a continued need and for our community to reach out to Anne Marie. And I know Don's done a great job with social media of getting that out. but I didn't know if you wanted to speak to the community's response, or I know you've been so proactive in working with entities, Anne Marie.
Yeah, so we've actually been getting some requests from different organizations to either act as a point of location where people can come and pick some up. So we're really looking for areas so we don't miss a niche anywhere within our community to make sure that we've covered every area that we can. So again, definitely we'll entertain any requests. If people will reach out to our department, we will definitely work with you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments for Anne Marie? Seeing none. Anne Marie, thanks very much. Appreciate your presence this morning.
Yep.
We'll move on to the sheriff's agenda. Is there a representative from the sheriff's office?
Good morning, Terry Como with the Sheriff's Office.
Good morning, sir. Okay, we've got several requests. The first one is amend the county budget to transfer $1,178 remaining in the sheriff's law enforcement fiscal year 19 law enforcement terrorism program from fiscal year 21 to fiscal year 2022.
Yes, sir. Request number one and request number two are basically the same, just two separate grants. I don't know if you keep those together or if you want to just separate them. It's up to you. But fiscal year 19, we have some money left over. The fiscal year 19 grant, we have about $1,178 left over, and we'd like to transfer that money into budget code for 2022. And also we have the FY20 fiscal year 20 state homeland grant. We have about 4689 17 remaining, and we'd like to send that over to the 2022, so we're able to utilize those funds this year.
All right, unless there's an objection, we'll take a motion to move request number 1 and 2 forward. Motion by Supervisor Driscoll, second by Supervisor McDevitt. Any questions, comments on this? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Third request in reference to Stop DWI program. Go ahead, Under Sheriff.
The Warren County Stop DWI, this is an intermunicipal agreement so that we're able to transfer Stop DWI funds. The Sheriff's Office now has Stop DWI under their umbrella, but in complete transparency, we have it's a separate unit from the Sheriff's Office. So in order to pay the Sheriff's Office the money that is contracted to them, we would like to renew our agreement from the Sheriff's Office to the Sheriff's Office, if that makes any sense to us. So we're able to use those funds for our Stop DWI on the Sheriff's Office side, on the patrol side.
Okay, good. The next request is related as well. We can probably do both of these. This is to renew the intermunicipal agreements with the Glens Falls PD, Warren County Probation, Warren County DA, and the Warren County Sheriff's Office to administer the Stop DWI Foundation funds.
Yeah, so we would actually pay those other entities at the end of the year. Probation, the DA's office, and Glens Falls PD all submit vouchers to the Sheriff's Office for the contract for the Stop DWI plan. We did not raise any funds on the Stop DWI plan. We're still in the phase where we're not quite sure how much money we're going to get from Stop DWI because of changes in laws and such, but we look like we're on pretty good pace. We have not, we just received third quarter 2021 funds at the end of January, and we have not received any fourth quarter funds from the state yet. We don't anticipate those for another couple of months. So we're not quite sure where we stand fund wise, but it looks like our balance in that Stop DWI program is pretty sustainable. We did not raise any, nobody asked for any extra monies this year. So the monies have stayed the same or status quo for the last 2 years that we've had the program anyway. So we'd like to be able to distribute those monies equally. And that is attached to the agenda here, where we pay, I think the district attorney's office gets about 26,000, probation gets 28,000. I could have those numbers.
Okay.
But
All right, thank you. Entertain a motion to move request items number 3 and 4 forward.
I will make that motion. I do have a comment at the time.
Okay, Supervisor Bramer, and there's a second from Supervisor Driscoll. Go ahead with your question, Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. It's just really a comment. Undersheriff, thanks for presenting these. I have asked in the past about using some of these funds for Stop BWI initiatives ever since a few years ago with, some of the incidents that were happening on Lake George. And it's my understanding that they cannot be used for preventing drunken driving in boats on the lake. But if that's ever a possibility for you to advocate for that kind of funding, I would very much appreciate it. And I think that our residents and our guests would appreciate that as well, to prevent those kinds of accidents. Thank you.
thank you very much for bringing that up. I do appreciate that. It's every on a weekly basis, I look at different parks and recreation grants to see if there's anything available from the state specifically for our boats, our boat patrol, and our grant funding for the lakes, so to speak, or for the waterways. If you absolutely, I'll take any suggestions, or if anybody hears of anything, please send it my way and I'll explore it. Thank you.
Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you. If I may, I have two questions for the undersheriff.
Go ahead.
Undersheriff, on the topic of the BWI, our NISAC conference is coming up at the end of March, and it may be a good opportunity to see if there is a desire, whether we're talking in our inter-county groups where there's multiple bodies of water, where this may be in concern both on Saratoga or, even north of us. So it may be an item that we could request to put on the inter-county agenda to talk about some funding or an ability to use some of those funds towards BWI. But I think it would be great if perhaps our chairman could become involved in that process with you, with NISAC and with Intercounty, or any of us as representatives on either of those to talk more. I know several years back, Supervisor Bramer had presented a proposal to NISAC on BWI, and I think the temperature is still there to be having this discussion, and would very much appreciate a little bit more of a proactive approach, I think, from our board in terms of helping with that potential use of those funds or legislation, if you would be open to helping us with that.
I would be open at any time to help you with that, and I would appreciate that. That would be outstanding. It's something that's been overlooked for years and years until you come across the problem that we have. But it would be very nice to be funded supplementally.
Great. Well, I'll follow up with you offline with that. I know that the current chairman, I believe, of our NISAC Criminal Justice Committee is a sheriff from a different part of the state. And he was, I believe, also the chair at the time Supervisor Bramer presented it. So I'll circle back on that. But my question was about the DWI funds themselves. Just to be clear, there is no county contribution into this program. These are all just state, the funds that we're getting from the state, right?
Those are funds from the state, yes.
Okay, so zero county dollars.
It doesn't appear there's any county dollars added into that. It all comes from the Stop BWI Foundation.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions, comments for the undersheriff? All right, so we had a motion and second for items 3 and 4. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item number 5 is a request to amend the county budget to reflect the appropriate revenue and expense codes for the second half of the 2021-22 school resource officer agreements.
Yes, sir. The rationale is, we'll need to pay our school resource officers in 2022. So we just need an amendment to go forward resolution to go forward to pay those folks.
Okay, entertain a motion. Supervisor McDevitt, second. Supervisor Bramer. Any comments or questions on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The sixth item is a request to amend the Warren County travel policy and county vehicle use regulations by authorized by previous resolution in 2004 and subsequent resolution in 2020 to add travel and training exemptions for sheriff's office employees. Under Sheriff.
So on a regular basis, and it included this morning, we were looking for, we have one of our seatbelt technicians, just for an example, expires on the 28th of this month. He was trying to get through to, so he, not realizing he expired on the 28th of this month, trying to finish his class. And he finished his class today, but we're not able to use a credit card or use we don't have the authorization to pay for it. It's a $55 charge. So we get quite a few. We'll add our officers to different classes, and we're on a reservation list. Classes now through the Division of Criminal Justice Services, they come up quick, the notices come up quick, and then we are put on a waiting list. And at the very last minute, we can get approved, or they say, oh, yes, you can send your person. But we'd like to have that authority to go ahead and send our people to those trainings or get them online to those trainings, and without a delay. It seems to be a little bit cumbersome on our part. I don't know how other departments are, react to this, but ours come up very quickly, and we participate now in a lot of online seminars, and we don't. Most of them are free, but even at the free level, we're still required to file an authorization, and we'd like to really, as we spell it out here, any in-state seminars, nothing out of state, any in-state seminars and training that have no more of a cost of $500, we'd like to be able to approve that, and participate in any online seminars or class meetings where there's no more of a cost of $500 per person per course, provided the sheriff's office has sufficient budget appropriations. And we watch that very closely. Like I said, most of our online trainings are free. They don't incur any cost even to the county, but we'd like to be able to approve those ahead of time.
Thank you, Under Sheriff. Just for the committee's information, this week I received alone this week, I think 4 training travel requests from the sheriff's office. 2 of them were in, I think, at the police academy in Schenectady. 1 was in Saratoga. There were no cost whatsoever to those. And I think the 4th one, there may have been a minor cost to it. My personal viewpoint on this is to support this. I just see the time that it takes for the sheriff's office to prepare these documents. They need 3 signatures on them to essentially send one of their personnel to training. In most cases, that is extremely local and at no cost. So I have strong support for this, and I'd ask for a motion to move it forward.
I'll move it with discussion question.
Okay, Supervisor Seaver, is there a second? Supervisor McDevitt. On a discussion, Supervisor Seaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little uncomfortable with talking about these without motions to get them on the floor, then have discussion, and also hearing from your perspective, Mr. Chairman, because to me that does sway the dialogue and the members. And as we know, committee chairs are supposed to refrain from any type of debate or influence. With that being said, I respect your opinion, and it is swaying my opinion on it. And I wish it wasn't. What I would like to do is offer a compromise I would like to know if this committee could send a resolution to personnel, and since our personnel chair is on here, perhaps he'd entertain it, that if a training is free, that there not be this approval process. You know, as you indicated, that there were multiple requests that were free trainings, but this isn't limited to an issue just with the sheriff's office. This is an issue for the Department of Social Services. This is an issue for other large departments where there are free training, or even small, that come up. I know Liza has spoken to us about this in the past. I think the intent was this used to be something that had to be approved by the entire committee, and we streamlined that process. So it was only the committee chair. And of course, as a chair, you have those additional responsibilities, and you want to know what's going on and who's going to training, particularly where there's a cost. I think the idea of the committee chair signing off on those along with the county administrator was simply that we wanted to support training and encourage it and continue to ask that our department heads engage in that, which clearly the sheriff's office does. But I'm uncomfortable with approving an exception just for the sheriff's office when I know that there's multiple other departments that are in the same situation as it relates to the training that is free, particularly in the world of online trainings. But the ones that have cost, I don't see where it's unreasonable just to ask for a verbal approval from the committee chair. You don't have to wait to come to full committee to get approval on that. That's a simple call or email to your committee chair. And as you mentioned, you were very responsive with that. And I would imagine if you're not available, your vice chair, Supervisor Bramer, would be. And those are easy yeses for the most part. So I guess the way this is presented, I would ask that this committee consider separating the issues, sending over to personnel a request to amend the travel and training policy so that free training and online training that isn't at a cost be removed from that approval process, and perhaps just reported by the department head at their meetings when they come to committee or through their committee chair. And the ones that do cost, I think it's really important that we recognize if anything is approved in any version, this has to go to personnel regardless. So I suppose this will all be discussed again in personnel. But that's where I stand on this. And I think that would help the sheriff's office if I'm not misunderstanding what the issue is under sheriff. Is that correct?
I think an amendment to ours, I don't want to speak for other departments or other offices. We were looking at most of our, I guess most of our training is under the $500 threshold. There are some that require travel and stay in hotels that go over the $500 threshold, which we certainly wanted to bring to the committees. Those are easy to present to the committee. Those usually are a month or two out, so that's easy enough. We were looking at the close ones in Saratoga where we have to buy lunch for the members, and it's a $32 charge, and we want to get that person to that training without hesitation. We want to say yes. I know that sometimes the dates conflict with other offices, with maybe the auditor's office saying, well, it's not approved until this date, but you went on this date. So it causes a little confusion and a little bit more. We have another phone call with the auditor's office or whomever that tries to explain that. And we thought it would be much easier if we could just go forward and approve it ourselves as long as it fits in our budget.
Supervisor Bramer, question?
Thank you, Chairman. The way I'm reading the policy, and maybe I'm wrong, is that the travel is not required to come to committee. It's approved by department head, county administrator, and committee chair, especially for online training. So I don't see anything. I'm not, like the chairman said, as long as he gets right back to you, or if I do, vice chair, I'm not seeing a need to add in the change that you're looking for, because where is the slowdown actually happening for online training in particular?
For online training in particular, depending on just this morning, we had this child safety seat refresher. So that's not approved. It cost us $55. So I know in the long run, I'm going to get a question from the auditor's office. Why don't I have this approved, or why is the date differently? And I'm not picking on the auditor's office. That's their job, and I appreciate that. They keep us all, in check, which is great. But the date's going to be different from the credit card bill, from when I
But
pay.
as long as the sheriff approved that and you get approval from the administrator and Chairman Gerasi already signed off on it.
Well, that's the problem. It's not. It's just happened this morning, so none of it is approved yet. There's not one thing that's approved on that. He expires on the 28th. The officer expires on the 28th. Had to do his refresher today. So those little things like that come up. There's some online things, and there is some courses that come up during that we get approval for to attend. There could be a course on Monday that we're approved to attend because Rensselaer can't send their people. So we would like to fill their seat. That type of,
I guess
that's turning into a slowdown. So
I would rather make sure that we do this carefully and send it to personnel, and make sure our auditor is happy too. Because even if we change the policy and the auditor is not happy, it's not going to get paid. She's doing her job.
tough. Oh yeah, she's tough.
There's a question from Supervisor McGowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hey, I'm picking up what you're putting down here, Terry, and I understand, most departments have a little bit more time, a little bit more schedule, but sometimes your department is a little bit different than probably the other departments where you have an opportunity where an opening comes up, and I understand sometimes you got to make these questions. So I guess my suggestion to make it, can we put a code in your budget where you have X amount of dollars where you could do what you have to do, where you wouldn't have to wait for all these approvals? I mean, am I wrong in that thinking? Like I said, I understand where you're coming from, but if you can't get a hold of the chairman and this and the administrator, I understand the urgency. Like this morning, you did it, you jumped on it, you're coming afterwards, and but if you had a code in your budget for X amount of dollars for certain trainings, or trainings that come up like this where you have to act quickly, that way you won't be in trouble. Is that an option?
Well, we have a training budget at the sheriff's office. I don't know if we would need to create another budget or another line item or anything like that to use as say an emergency fund for training. I don't think that would, I wouldn't want to use that. I wouldn't want to put the auditor or our office in that kind of situation where we're saying it's an emergency and then the auditor saying it's not that happens a lot. I guess we're looking at it as when we like our dates kind of like the auditor's dates. When 3 years down the road, if somebody comes to me and says, why is this dated on this day and you attended on this day, I want to be able to, I don't want to have to explain that. I want to just keep that, November 5th is the date of the class. We got it approved on October 25th. So it's a steady stream. It flows, that type of thing. It saves a lot of questions in the end for everybody involved, I believe. This was more.
I guess, sorry, a follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Supervisor McGowan.
I mean, so if you already have that in there, what is the problem with this morning? I'm just a little confused. Are you trying to change some policies which could affect other departments,
Well, I'm looking at this morning that we have to get this officer trained before he expires, and then he's able to take the class, does the class online, but I have no approval, and I owe the company $55 for that training.
But you have a code budget for training.
I do, but I don't have approval for that training.
Supervisor
All right,
Seaver.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to offer an amendment to the motion that I put forth, but before I do that, Chairman Drossy, did you not approve verbally the training this morning?
This morning, I don't believe this morning was, no, because it came in late.
Well, I mean, my point being is Terry, we don't need full committee approvals for this. So as long as the chairman, shoot you back a quick email or yeah, I mean, we approve these retroactively and can have the dates all line up fairly easily. I hope that's not ever going to become a sticking point with the auditor's office or become an issue that won't get paid out. To me, those are really easy fixes. But what I'm hearing from you is a really big concern about free and virtual trainings. And what I would like to do is amend my resolution to ask that this be sent over to the Personnel Committee to look at modifying the travel and training policies as it relates to free and virtual trainings. If that's something that Supervisor Thomas would be willing to entertain in his committee.
Supervisor Thomas?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I had a conversation with Administrator Moore when we knew that this was going to come before your committee, and we both felt that this, we'd see how it goes at this committee, and we felt that this was probably something that should be implemented countywide with discussion and a proper proposal. So, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion by Supervisor Seaver with an amendment that was, I'm not sure we had a second to the amendment. Is there a second to Supervisor Seaver's amendment? You want to summarize that again?
Sure. I'd like to make a motion that we refer this, as just stated by our personnel chair, to have this looked at a countywide level for all departments, not just highlighting the sheriffs, but the problems that this may cause in other departments. But I feel this is a significant concern and one that the Personnel Committee should be taking a look at, as that is, of course, most of our items will pass through those very important committees. And I trust our chairman over there will, it sounds like he's already worked very hard and in detail with our county administrator to discuss concerns that have come up. So I think it would be appropriate for this to fall under, while I appreciate, of course, Mr. Chairman Thomas, that you have brought this over to criminal justice because it originated from the sheriff's office. It does touch every department. So I would ask that we respectfully refer this to the Personnel Committee and that a member from this committee second that amendment.
Understood. Is there a second to Supervisor Seaver's motion with the amendment?
Chairman, I'm happy. Thank you. I support that. I thought that was a motion, a separate motion, but I'd like to clarify if Supervisor Seaver is withdrawing her other motion regarding resolution request number 6.
Thank you. May I, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer, for that catch. I am withdrawing my initial support of the resolution before us and putting forth that proposal that we refer this topic of virtual and free and online training over to the Personnel Committee for review of the policy.
Okay, and then I second that motion. Thank you, Chairman.
All right. So just to be clear, the request that we had in front of us, which was number 6, is not moving forward, but we are going to move forward Supervisor Seaver's motion that's seconded by Supervisor Bramer to move this issue entirely to the Personnel Committee. Did I summarize that correctly? Supervisor Driscoll, question?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to be clear on something, and I fully support Supervisor Bramer and Seaver's motion. I can't remember who made the first motion, but I just want to make sure that it doesn't present a hardship for any particular department, and I want to be clear that they know the process that they can take in the meantime before it comes to the Personnel Committee.
Understood. I think that the current process is working. It's just, I believe it's a hardship on behalf of the department heads, in this case, the sheriff's office. So we'll move it to the Personnel Committee and hopefully for action. So we had a motion, we had a second. Any other questions, comments? Supervisor Seaver.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Respectfully, I'm still failing to see the hardship here today, particularly in the example that we have before us. I understand it on free and virtual, and I think that's a hardship for all departments. But Mr. Chairman, again, with respect to your weighing in on this topic, before we vote, could you for the record just state that the request that the undersheriff had this morning to renew I think he said it was a car seat or seatbelt safety training is approved?
Sure. Yeah, I approve that training. I don't think we don't need a motion for that.
No. I just
Right.
want to make sure it's on the record so that way the auditor and Terry, you don't have any problems with the dates lining up, just to illustrate that hopefully these are things we can do quickly to respond
Okay.
to those needs.
I appreciate you clarifying that. Under Sheriff, that's understood that today's training is approved.
Thank you.
Okay, good. All right, on the motion, the second, all those in favor of moving this to personnel?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And we have another item number 7. This is a, if necessary, amendment to the rules of the board authorizing the sheriff to fill officer positions that become vacant. Under Sheriff?
The rationale behind the patrol officer positions is for example, by April, we believe that we'll be down another 4 patrol officers, either retirements or folks moving on to a different job. So we'd like to be able to fill those positions, not change the table of organization. We're not moving anywhere. We're adding more patrol officers to the table of organization. If we are scheduled for 76, we would not go above 76. And that is watched closely by other offices and other departments within the county. And that would not be allowed to happen, to go above our table of organization. So we'd like to be able to fill those positions without bringing them to the board. We've had great success with the board and with the committee, and we have not been refused, but we'd like to move forward a little bit quicker with the hiring process.
All right. Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor McDevitt. Second. Supervisor Driscoll. Any questions or comments on this? Supervisor Sieber.
Yes, I think at this point, if I could ask our chairman of personnel supervisor or Chairman Gerasi, his feeling on this. In the past, I believe that there's been concern about making too many exceptions to departments that then there'd be this trickle down effect with other departments. I mean, this is a common issue that, at least for my 4 terms on the board, I've heard about. And that having to come to committee with an intent to fill. We've streamlined, once again, this process over the years so it doesn't get bogged down in the committee process. And now that we're having 2 full board meetings a month, I would think that this process should be, if the department heads, hopefully they're all aware of that, so that, this should be moving much quicker now. I mean, to the extent that there is a process where it's holding up a delay of a hire or an intent to fill. I think this is something, perhaps you've already talked about this, Chairman Thomas and Chairman Gerasi, with our administrator and our chair of the board, but I would say this is something that should go over to personnel. It's a big deviation from the process we already have. And I just can't see that we aren't moving things quickly, especially with 2 board meetings, but I would like our personnel chair's response on that, if that's permitted.
Sure. Supervisor McGowan had his hand up first. Supervisor McGowan, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. No disrespect, to our sheriff's department, but, I believe last year when I was sitting in for Supervisor Diamond, that we approved quite a few hiring for the sheriff's department. And I don't know, I don't feel comfortable sitting there just giving a carte blanche that go ahead, you guys just do what you want. we have to answer to the taxpayers, and I just not, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but this sounds like another huge policy change or a bigger policy change than the last resolution there. So, yeah, definitely, I'd like Frank's chime in on this. Obviously, it seems to have been discussed like the last one with the administrator and Frank, and we're hearing about it for the first time. So help me out.
Supervisor Thomas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No, this hasn't been discussed. I think these positions are all budgeted. I mean, they're not new positions. I don't think they're asking to change the filling out the intent to fill form where the administrator, the budget officer, and the committee chair just signs it. So I'm not really sure, what other than it not coming to committee and before the board, I really don't see the problem. And given the amount of time that it takes to train an officer and a patrolman, if there's going to be a vacancy, it's probably wise to get started.
Supervisor Brame?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for your comments, Personnel Chair Thomas. I do appreciate that insight. I guess I'm wondering, if there was such a rush to get the 4 patrol officers, why don't we see those 4 here today, like we had for item number 8? I don't think I'm going to support this because I think they should still come to committee and do the normal process.
Supervisor Hogan?
Thank you, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to weigh in here on a committee that I don't sit on. But I'm all for streamlining the process, but not carving it out department by department. I think this one would be another one appropriate to bump over to personnel and talk about it as a countywide change rather than just department by department. It's a slippery slope otherwise. So I won't support it when it comes to the full board if we don't get it out of coming from personnel and applying to everyone.
Another Supervisor Receiver?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak twice on this issue. I do think that Supervisor Hogan makes a valid point that perhaps this is something that other departments feel that is a burden and needlessly is holding up in the process of what some might look at as red tape, but we're also a system of checks and balances and a legislative function. And I think we need to be careful to remember that even if it's not being discussed, which typically, I know it's coming to committee, but I guess Supervisor Thomas had indicated that the process would still follow with the intent to fill and the paperwork, but perhaps that's something we could look at countywide. If it really is this big of a concern for the sheriff's office, and it sounds like it is, then perhaps it is an issue with other of our large departments or even our small departments. But I do think that regardless, this would require, as I understand it, perhaps even a change to the rules of the board. So I think there's more than just a simple resolution with this. And, perhaps every department head should have the authority to fill their budgeted positions without having to come to committee and just do the paperwork. So I would say that perhaps this topic should find its way onto the personnel agenda to adequately reflect all of our departments.
Understood. Supervisor McDevitt?
Yeah, I'm going to support the issue as presented. At the end of the day, the sheriff's department, and this is the major differential between the sheriff's office and other departments. The sheriff's is an elected position that distinguishes him and makes him readily accountable to the voters and the taxpayers of the county. So I'm going to support the issue as presented. I think it makes sense, and I would, at the end of the day, give the sheriff the discretion and the authority to run his own department as he sees fit.
Thank you. Supervisor Seaver?
Just then I don't know who made the motion, but if that's the argument before us, should we also then include the DA, the clerk, the treasurer's office, as they are all elected positions with big departments that they oversee, as we're considering that being the rationale?
Well, we have a motion or request before us that does not include those other departments. While that seems reasonable, that certainly would be something taken up at a later date. I believe we had a motion to move this forward initially and the second. So I would ask for a vote on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Was that Supervisor Driscoll? Did you say aye?
Yes.
Okay. Looks like 2. And myself. There's 3. Those opposed?
Post.
Supervisor Bramer and Supervisor Sieber. I don't see any other committee members here. Just checking, unless I'm missing something. So the motion is carried. Supervisor Sieber,
Yeah,
question?
just a quick point of order. Perhaps we could have a direct roll call vote on those members that are present. I'd like to know what members aren't. And then also clarification on the voting of the chair. I know the chair can vote, but I'm just looking for a little clarification on that. Because right after this, I'd like to make a separate resolution to address all of our departments over to the personnel on this issue. So I'm not supporting this, but I would like to move forward with a resolution that would go to the personnel committee to take a look at this holistically for every one of our departments. So not opposed to the concept, just carving
right,
out
well,
one department.
I'll ask the county attorney if you can weigh in on the issue about the chair vote. Is there an issue?
If I could get a little more detail from Supervisor Sieber.
So yeah, if I may.
Go ahead.
Thank
Supervisor
you.
Sieber.
I dare to even bring this topic up because last year was such a hot topic on Robert's rules and our committees and who can vote and when. But it was my understanding that the chair votes in committee. But there was something with if there was a tie, and could we just do a roll call vote on this one? I mean, my gut feeling is that we are going to get something over to personnel out of this committee. And we'll be addressing this as a whole. So this is probably just an exercise that I don't need to be doing, but I'm a little confused here. So who are your members on the committee and how did they vote?
Understood.
Chairman, if I may suggest, I think you've got Tammy there. She could probably do a roll call for us.
Tammy, are you on?
Sure, I'll do it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
go ahead, please.
Okay. Supervisor Garassi,
Yes.
Supervisor Bramer,
No.
Supervisor Sieber,
No.
Supervisor Dickinson is absent. Supervisor Driscoll,
Yes.
Supervisor McDevitt,
Yes.
and Supervisor Diamond is absent.
All right, so we have 3 ayes and 2 nays, correct, Tammy?
Yes.
Motion is Supervisor Sieber. Go
Point of
ahead.
order. Don't your absence count as no's?
I know we had that discussion previously, but I'm not sure it got resolved as a
This
no
is
or just an absent.
County Attorney, under the rules of the board, I am not aware that an absence counts as a no vote. But the count to carry isn't the majority of the members present, it's the majority of the members of the board, I believe. And I'll have to double check that. But it's not a 3-2 majority carries because there's 5 members present. I believe it's and again, I have to provide the clarification that I'm not the parliamentarian and I'm not the board's expert on the Robert's Rules of Procedure. but I believe it's the vote of the entire membership of the board. And did it pass? Which would be, there's 7 members on this board, so I believe it needs 4 votes to pass, not a majority of the members present.
Mr. Grassi, this is Amanda. Can I speak?
Go right ahead.
So the voting is different at committee and at the board. At the board, it's a majority of the board that needs to pass. You have to have 502 votes present and voting in favor to pass. At committee, once you have a quorum, which in this case is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we'd need 4 people, then it would be a majority of those present carries the vote. So in this case, you have 3 in favor, 2 against, so the vote does carry.
Thank you for clarifying that, Amanda.
I'll
Appreciate
stand.
it.
Thank you, Amanda.
You're welcome.
All right, so this motion was moved and second, voted on, and carried forward. Thank you. I believe there is one more agenda item, Under Sheriff.
That's a request to fill patrol officer number 48. That position will be, it's vacated today. And following the retirement of an officer. And we were moving forward to fill that position.
Thank you. Motion to move this request forward. Supervisor Sieber, second. Supervisor McDevitt. Any comments, question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Under Sheriff, any other discussion items?
No, sir.
Chairman, if I may just address one topic, and it's actually what I was reviewing and working on during that last conversation.
Go ahead, Larry.
On items numbers 3 and 4 on the STOP DWI program and funding, there are prior resolutions which cover and provide for extension years. So on item number 3, the resolution from last year, which was 434 of 2021, did include further annual extensions. So while the committee can do an additional resolution this year, there is a resolution in place that will cover for this coming year and then a further extension the following year. And the same is true for item number 4. The difference is that the resolution my computer locked up, so I don't have it on my screen, but there is a resolution, I believe, that's in effect for an further extension this year as well, and possibly for next year as well.
All right, if that's the case, without objection, that's 2 less items that we have to move through the entire board. Any objection to that from the committee?
Chairman, if I may, I just suggest that we leave it on for now, and if it can be withdrawn before the full board meeting.
Okay,
I just,
understood.
looking quickly at the agreements in our packets, I do see the one extension referred to, but not the other one that our attorney is mentioning.
All right, we'll leave it
Just
on until
add-
verified.
Thank you. I don't want to have to come back if we did and make another. Thank you.
Understood. All right, any comments, privilege of the floor? Tammy or Amanda, you see anything? Supervisor Sieber, excuse me. Go ahead.
Thank you for following back up with me. I have 2 resolutions I'd like to bring before this committee. One is a direct result of the conversation that we just had, and I would make a motion that we refer to the Personnel Committee a resolution request to evaluate the notice of intent process, that perhaps we look at any department that feel they should have the authority to fill their budgeted positions without having to go through committee, but still following the paperwork trail, and that we don't carve out just one department, but rather we look at this systemically across the county. And I would appreciate a referral over to personnel to look at that.
Okay, we have a motion request from Supervisor Sieber. Is there a second? Supervisor Bramer, any comments, further questions? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed?
No,
We have one no. Okay. Motion is carried.
Thank you. I
Next,
do have a
Supervisor
second.
Seaver.
Thank you. And what we just witnessed with the rules of the board and the discrepancies between committee and full board, I think this speaks to a lot of the issues that we continue to have with discussions in committee. And then when it comes to a full board, of course, we should spend the time debating, but it does highlight some of the issues that we have where something may not pass at a full board that either passed at a committee or never gets off the ground at a committee meeting. Particularly the issue of attendance and how those votes are counted and the discrepancies between what the rules of the board look like for full board meetings versus these smaller committee meetings. Today, we have 2 members in not in attendance. Had they either been counted as a no, it would have impacted the vote, or had they been here, how their absence impacts the committee discussion. And I would just ask that this particular issue, we've struggled with it for years, the differences between committee and full board, in terms of quorum and voting, that we take a look at that again in legislative and rules or government ops. And I was wondering if there was an appetite for that.
Okay, Supervisor Hogan.
Thanks once again, even though I won't be voting on this, but just for consideration, so often resolutions get to the full board and some of our discussion around them refers to the fact that they passed through committee, that they were vetted through a committee. So to that, I would support us discussing this as a body because, not to diminish the impact of any resolution coming out of any committee, but when only 3 people have voted on it, and that's all that was required to pass it, and then it goes to the full board, and someone there says, oh no, it's come through committee, I think, that's blurring the lines of vetting these things, so to speak. It isn't something that was supported by the majority of a committee. It was just a few people. So I fully support passing this on to legislative and rules for discussion.
Thank you. Supervisor McGowan. I think you're on mute.
Well, thank you very much. I forgot about that. I brought this up before. Now that we've gone to 2 full board meetings, all right, and then we seem to have 2 really full days of committees, that's 4 days. Even if we went to a 2 or a 3 board meeting where we had all the committees where we were all together to make these decisions together, it would make a process go a lot easier. So I agree with Supervisor Hogan and of course with Rachel Sieber, moving this, but it's really a lot of things that we have to discuss here. And I think there should be a few changes, but as I stated before, really having a full board meetings with all the committees sitting there, we're spending 5-6 days anyways together doing all this if we all want to keep everything, the transparency open. So that's just a comment. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. Individuals may have noticed that I didn't vote on the last vote. That's because it often takes me a little bit of time to process the pros and cons of deliberations. I'm always in support of talking it out, vetting it, making sure that we're all on the same page, that if we have any questions, I think we all have the same goal. How we get there is more important to me. And so again, I would support bringing it to rules and committee or whatever other committee is necessary in order to make sure that we get this right. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? All right, Supervisor Sieber, if you want to summarize this in a motion, or you just want to move it for further discussion?
No, I'm happy to summarize it in a motion and would appreciate a second before, although I don't think I need it in a committee before calling a vote or having discussion. that part of Robert's rules I'm clear on, but the, in committee anyway, not the full board. So again, those are things that we might want to be talking about in our legislative and rules and government operations. But I would ask that we bring the, this is a good example of why we need to reevaluate the practices of voting in committee and how they should be structured. And would ask that, using this as an example, we move it over to government ops, legislative and rules for, and I'd be open to whatever joint meetings need to happen with that, but at least to start a dialogue about committee, our voting in committee and the discrepancies between committee and full board votes as have been highlighted here. And I'm sure that our clerk of the board, Ms. Allen, can massage that language to be a little more succinct in a referral and discussion over to government ops next month, if she wouldn't mind helping me with that at the appropriate time.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion from Supervisor Seaver to move this issue to government ops and legislative rules. Is there a second? Supervisor Driscoll, all in favor? Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any other discussions, privilege of the floor? I'm not sure. Supervisor McGowan, if that's your hand waving or just a shadow? You're on mute.
I believe it's a shadow. I'm talking to myself with my hands.
Okay. Any other discussion items, privilege of the floor? Amy or Tammy, is there anything that you see?
No.
All right. I thank you all for attending, those that attended in person today with the weather conditions. I'll accept a motion to adjourn. Supervisor Seaver, Supervisor McDevitt, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Point of order.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you all.
Point of
very much.
order. Point of order.
Point of order. Sorry. Go ahead, Supervisor Seaver.
I am simply doing this as a matter of practice because we work so hard on our rules of the board. My point of order here is that we did change our rules of the board that apply to committee and to full board, that we have discussion on a motion to adjourn. And we very frequently skip right over that. And I would just appreciate discussion while I have none, that we follow our rules of the board.
Understood.
Thanks.
We have a motion. We have a second. Is there any discussion or comments on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Have a good day. We'll move